Welcome to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast with your host, legendary powerlifter and strength athlete, Chad Ikes. For most, the journey of strength starts in the gym, but should inevitably expand through all aspects of life. Join us as we discuss all things strength. Now, here's your host, Chad Ikes.
Legendary powerlifter.
I actually still laugh every time I hear that. Like every now and then people are like, dude, you were a legend. I'm like, I'm not a legend. Like Ed Cohn's a legend. Like I just lifted some shit.
Oh, that's funny.
So today we're here with Jim Wendler, which probably this one was a long time coming. I think I got 50 something episodes and I'm finally getting around to Jim.
All right.
He's a little bit antisocial too. So
I've gotten better.
Working on it.
Because I'm coaching. So it kind of forces me to go out in public. I'm coaching at the school.
Yeah, kids. You don't coach. You actually don't coach powerlifters right now, do you?
No. If like we've had some occasionally some kids ask about some stuff, and even if I did some kind of online training, I don't think I would want to coach powerlifters. It just doesn't interest me. Like training young teenagers, like getting the kids developing their training for their sport and stuff is everything. It's all I want to do. And so I don't even know. I wouldn't like, to me, like, I know this sounds really bad, but I think you'd understand that powerlifting's kind of easy to train for. You just get stronger. And the problem that I think a lot of people have with powerlifting is they think that they're always going to be making progress, when the reality is it's all over the place, and it's hard to put it all together on a meet day. You know what I'm saying? And it's to me, like, if it was like you always had options, you can always gain weight. Like there's always things you could be doing. And that was one of my big issues. Is someone says, I don't want to gain any weight. It's like, dude, like, you're 6 foot, you got to weigh close to 280 at least. And I don't want to get that big. I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, then why do you want to be a powerlifter?
Yeah. Because if you're not genetically suited, it's tough, and I see that all the time with the kids I work with is, we've had a tremendous amount of success on the field. Tremendous. It blows my mind how good we are.
Yeah.
We've had one Division I athlete since I've been there for 8 years. So we have a lot of just normal kids, not saying that they're bad athletes, but we don't have like the superstars.
Yeah, the genetic freaks.
Yeah,
the natural.
So to me, I love training that because it feels like
making a bigger difference.
Everything makes a difference. Like, every set makes a difference. Every day we make a difference. And after 5 years, the kids really develop into something that obviously they're not going to go to school. Some of them do, for football, but they've developed far beyond their physical potential. And when you put all of them together, all going forward, so to speak.
Well, I guess how long have you been at that school now?
My first off season was the 2017. So 2016.
So almost 8 years. So you've had time now. Like, I think we talked about this at the Arnold last year or the year before, where like when you first start, you're like, dude, it's going to take a while to set this up and get everything in place. And now you're to the point where when a freshman comes in, he's training and seeing seniors that you've trained for 4 years.
Well, not only that, my wife does the 7th and 8th grade football players training. So by the time they come, they've already got, at the very least, I know this sounds dumb, at the very least, they know what a squat, bench press, and trap bar is. They know how to set it up. They know how to do bar math.
Mm-hmm.
Think that's not a big deal? What does 150 look like? What is 155? I mean, that stuff matters because the way we train everything on a clock. Every single set's done on a clock because it just makes it much more efficient. We can take a workout that might take an hour and a half for most schools. We can get that done in 40 minutes because everything is done on a clock. But anyway, so by the time they get to me, their general fitness is much higher than it would be, obviously, if not, and they're much stronger, and they know about the culture and attitude of the weight room.
Right.
So
like, I mean, that 4 years or almost 6 years from, God, what would that be, from like 12 to 18?
yeah, I think 13 to,
Like, that's a huge, you could have a huge impact on kids. Like, they probably look completely different coming in as a freshman and leaving.
yeah. I mean, kids naturally look different from 7th grade to senior year, even if they didn't. It's, but what it's usually around junior year is when you could see things start to click in their head. And we've had a couple kids here and there, when they're seniors, you can actually talk to them like a normal human being, so just, and that's always cool to see that, the kids mature greatly. And I always say the kids go through like 2 puberties. They go through the normal puberty, and then I go to man puberty. And that's when they understand how, like, the effort is paramount, the attitude. They're not too high and too low, on they did something greater, whatever. They're able to just kind of just be more mature. And that's when you don't get a lot of those in high school.
I know a lot of adult powerlifters that can't do that.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. We don't get a lot, but when you do, it's like, holy cow. Like, everything slows down for them in life. Like,
yes,
I don't need to go out tonight. Listen, I got to do this test thing. I'll be fine. Like, I don't need to do that, or, this is a little more important, stuff like that. And like, I had a kid.
You just gave me a shot in my head of I like to go fast. Like, I like to go really fast.
Okay.
So depending on what motorcycles I had at the time, you get this like a tunnel vision.
Yeah.
And like everything on your side starts going faster and faster, but you can like pick out a pebble in the road doing 190 on a motorcycle. And when you said that, I thought, man, that's like the clarity is like, you start going, this party, but that's bullshit blur on the side. My girlfriend being pissed off, that's bullshit blur. I have my focus.
Yeah, you are. I think the head coach at Arizona, when I was playing football there, Dick Tomey, said, wherever you are, be there.
Yeah.
So if you're in the meetings, don't worry about practice. Don't worry about school, your girlfriend, or whatever else. Just worry about the meeting. And I think I listened to Andy Stumpf. He's been on Joe Rogan a couple times. He has his own podcast, but he was a Navy SEAL, and he talked about going through buds. And he said, listen, they have to feed you 3 meals a day. And my goal was just to get to the next meal. I'm just going to worry about the next evolution, and then I can quit, or then I'll just feel sorry for myself. And then you get to the next meal, and you're like, you know what? Okay, I can survive at least to the next meal.
Right.
And so we talk about that a lot with playing the game. I'm not a big, we have to win or winning. I always tell the kids, let's just win the next play. And I said, if you win the next play, you, and that's just a little fight. We got a little 6-second fight. Let's just win that fight. And then let's come back and win it again. If everyone does that all the time, whatever's on the scoreboard is to be. Sometimes the other team's just better, and that's fine. Like, we've played plenty of teams. It didn't matter how good we were. Like, they were so much better than us, especially when you get to the playoffs. That's, all of a sudden, it doesn't matter how good you are. It just, you could have I could train all the time for prime Mike Tyson. It wouldn't matter one bit. So, but anyway, we talk about that. Let's just win today. Let's win this set. Like, don't worry about running. Let's just get through this set. Let's be awesome right now. So
I had a conversation with, well, actually, I think I heard Ed say this, and Ed Cohen, and I called him up and talked to him because that's so weird. That's exactly how I looked at it. And he was talking about, I never thought I would get to this point. He's like, I was thinking about the next meet, the next PR.
Yep.
And I go, I did the same thing. I went to every meet. Like, I didn't even care if I won the meet. I'm like, did I do better than I did last time? Okay, well, then I'm on my way. And if I just keep doing this, eventually I'll get where I want to be.
Well, you'll get where you're supposed to be. Wherever that is.
Yes. That's actually a better way to say that.
Yeah, because I tell when I was talking to the kids, I tell them, like, listen, we're not going to win a lot of games because we're ultra talented. That's fine. But we will win if we're all kind of working towards the same goal. And then you're doing your job. I always tell them, be selfish in the weight room. Like, don't let someone hold you back. Doesn't mean you're selfish like a dick.
Yes.
But like, let's take care of yourself. And then eventually you'll be able to influence more and more people, like just the people in your rack. That rack gets really good. And then maybe the next rack sees what you guys are doing. And then it's just like, it's a good cancer. So
yes. Yes.
And but the problem is everyone wants to police everyone else.
Yeah.
Because that's easier to do than to look at yourself and be like, oh shit, dude, I'm a piece of crap. My effort sucks. It's true.
Well, no, that's one of the hardest things with all the power lifters, any athletes, and pretty much everyone I know is it's like, turn inside, you're bitching about this and this and this, but are you getting your nutrition? Are you getting your sleep? Are you doing this? Like, it's easy for you to bitch about everything else, but you're not really looking at yourself and
yes. Well,
be truthful.
You can look across the world and see that in just about every endeavor.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead. It's easier to police the world because you're not going to make any difference. Do you know what I'm saying? But it's hard to police yourself because there's there's real consequences and you can see the failures.
But to me, that's even more of a reason to police myself because I can make a difference.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. But but you also, if you do that, you also noticed your failures.
Yes.
And, that's tough for some people, and I get it. Like, I totally get it. I remember
it's not a failure. I can't remember who I was talking about. I think it was Laura Phelps. We were talking about this. And it was like, if I bombed out of a meet, I didn't see that as a failure. I saw that as part of the process. As long as I learned from it and knew that I could get better, then that was it's like when you try something new and you screw up 2 times. Well, that means that's 2 things that don't work. So you're smarter than you were before.
As long as you don't keep on doing the same thing.
Yeah, well, that's where you learn that, hey, that way didn't work. Well, I know one less way that works now, so I'm that much closer to figuring it out.
I remember I didn't do a ton of meets, but I remember when I bombed out of the first meet that I bombed out at was but boy, did I make changes after that. It was perfect. And one thing you'll learn in the strength world is what gets you to 500 pounds probably not going to get you to 600. And I'm not just saying you're going to have to add a little extra tricep works. There's massive changes.
Yes.
That, when I got to a 900-pound squat and I had to completely change everything to get to 940 and then 1000. It's funny because it seems like it's only 100 extra pounds. Well, okay. You do it.
Well, I think the harder and harder, and we've talked about this before too, like getting from 400 to 500 is a whole lot different than getting to 700 to 800. And you get to a point where you're like, man, if I put 10 pounds on this year, I'm going to be happy. And when you're young, you're like,
50
pounds.
I heard someone on a forum criticize Andy Bolton because his deadlift only went from, and I don't know these exact numbers, but let's just, I was 1003 to 1008, and it took him like 2 years or something. Like, dude, 5 pounds in 2 years? What was he? Lazy piece of shit. Do you think Andy can deadlift 1,000 pounds more than once or twice a year? I'm not criticizing. It's hard. You can't peak it.
No, it blows your whole system out.
Yeah. It's like, Dorian Yates didn't look like that year round. You know that, right? Just didn't walk around. Here's a funny story is in one of the Wolverine movies, Hugh Jackman, I don't know it doesn't matter which one it was, but he's shirtless and he's doing this. He talked about that. They shut down production for 2 days and he just depleted carbs. And
just so he could look like that for that 1 5-second scene.
Yeah. And it's funny because everyone's like, man, look at him. I got to look like that. He's like, dude, that took all of his energy just to go, and he probably cramped up. And it's like, I got to take the rest of the day off, man.
I read an article they did one time in one of the magazines, and they went through and interviewed all these personal trainers.
Mm-hmm.
And like 95% of them said, I would not have abs if this was my job.
Yeah.
If it wasn't my job, because they're like, it is so hard to keep
Yeah.
a good six pack all year long.
Yep. It's miserable, man. And I mean, there's obviously some people that are genetically gifted.
Yeah.
You know, guys like DK Metcalf, who's a wide receiver for the Seahawks. Dude, his diet is horrendous. He just eats candy. And he looks like a professional bodybuilder. Like it's common.
Yeah. I mean, there's always some guys that can just do that, but for everyone else to assume that.
Yeah, I know. So I saw some comment that, you know, all guys should be at X body fat percentage, you know, whatever. And I remember I saw many football players, super explosive, super fast. You see them with their shirt off, you're like, wow, dude, and they work out.
Yeah.
But they don't look anything like you'd think a guy running a 4.4 at 250 looks like, or whatever.
Right.
You know? It was just a real eye opener. Like, it's hard to, first of all, I'm never going to tell anyone what their body fat percentage should be. I don't really care. But if you can be healthy and not be obese, but if you can do your job and do it great, you're whatever. Sometimes you might be at 17 or 18%. If you're just a normal dude, like, that's fine. It's too much work, like you said, like the trainers, to just be miserable your whole life. Again, doesn't mean you should be obese, but like this, and it's really, I think social media really kind of drives that home with you see so many guys, just casually standing there. Right.
Yeah. And that's actually the 20th picture they took that they finally posted.
Well, they also take about 500 pictures in different outfits so they can post them year round.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I look good right now, so I'm gonna take a shit ton of pictures.
And then, so I don't know.
I was thinking about that the other day. I was like scrolling through Instagram, and I'm like, just shaking my head, like, dude, this is all bullcrap. Like, I can't believe people like just believe this shit.
Well, the other thing, that is interesting is we'll just use it in an example that I think that works for me is most of our workouts at the high school aren't legendary social media approved workouts.
Right.
They're good workouts, but we just stack days on days on days. That's all we do, because we train 51 weeks out of the year. We train year round, no matter what.
That's awesome.
All the way through the season. The week after the season, the kids are back on track. So we never stop running. We never stop lifting. But by doing that, of course, you don't have to have those crazy workouts. But I see, I don't know if I assume people still do this, because like I did 100-pound dumbbells for 70 minutes today, on the dumbbell bench. It's like, not every workout is social media worthy, but I think people see it and like, wow, that's just what you do all the time.
Oh, I think people do that.
You don't have to do a YouTube workout today, guys. We're just going to have a good day today. And
I've actually, because there's some really young raw lifters that impress the shit out of me. So I'm always, because I kind of consider myself a scientist. I'm like, I wonder what they're doing. Like, they're getting stronger, or they're doing something. So I'll go through their social media and I'm like, this is insane. Like, I can't track it because you don't really know what days it was posted. You don't really know when they did it. Like, how many of these days it's videos from one day that are put in different clips. But if you look at it, because everybody's like, oh, I gotta get content. I gotta get content. So you look at it and you're like, holy shit, this guy trains heavy like every fucking day. What the fuck?
Yeah. And that's, I think, if you were a young lifter coming up, I think that you got to be a little careful. Like, you got to do some research with training. And I don't blame social media. I mean, that's awesome that people are able to do that, and it inspires, young lifters and stuff like that. But the reality of the situation is much different. For example, the other day I found a video clip of them shooting a horror scene in a movie. So it's like some guy standing there with his iPhone, and it's bright as hell, and it's and then whatever, like a ghost was dragging him, but you could see like the rope and everything.
Right.
And, it looks totally normal. And then they posted the real clip, the one that you saw. It doesn't even look like the same thing. First of all, they don't scream at all. They added like it's just
it's all added in.
Like it looks like I couldn't believe the difference between the two. And I always think, when I was younger, you'd watch like these really good horror movies and like that must have been terrifying to make. And then there's 75 people in there. Lights are bright as hell because they add all the dim stuff during post-production. It's just like you and your buddies, like, all right, I'm gonna yank on this rope and drag you.
I actually went through recently. I think I talked some of this in the table talk. I was going back over all this stuff that I learned when I was a kid, because I had all bodybuilding shit when I started training for high school. And so I'm going back over and I'm looking at Menser and Arthur Jones HIIT training, and I'm going back over because I always like the hardcore guys.
Yep.
Like even to this day, I like to lift crazy, but now I understand that if I lift crazy, it's going to take a long time for me to recover.
You can lift crazy once, or you can lift kind of normal a lot. It's just the way it goes.
But I'm going back over it and I'm thinking about, I'm reading it now after all these years of lifting, and I'm thinking back to my interpretation when I was a kid. So, and even watching Pumping Iron, when I was a kid, it was like train, hard, got to squat till I collapse. And then I go back and watch it now and I go, well, those lazy motherfuckers, they're sitting on the beach, they're going out to eat. Like these guys aren't training. What the hell was I thinking?
Your lens is much different. Yeah, right?
I found a clip of Tom Platz. And because I love Tom Platz, I'm like, dude, the squat rack's got to be my altar. Like I have to go crazy. Right. And in this video, he's like, yeah, he goes, I squatted like twice a month.
Yeah.
It's like those sessions were intense, but he goes, I couldn't recover. Yeah. And I'm like, well, why did I miss that when I was a kid?
I always stopped it right before he said that. Like, paused it or just fast forward.
I found what I wanted to hear. That's it. I'm out.
Yeah. And you probably did hear that.
Oh, I'm sure I heard it, and my brain completely blocked it out.
Yeah, I know. Oh my,
that's it's like I kind of understand when people do that stuff, but I'm like, it's different now. There are guys out there telling you now, but again, they were telling me back then. I just didn't hear it.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, someone asked me like, who influenced you and stuff like that, and who do you think is really good, in the business? And I'm not going to name names because it doesn't even matter, but the two people I think are the best programmers and coaches aren't even on social media.
Yes.
And, if one of them is, but it has nothing to do with training. Like, it's just like him and his kids and stuff like that. You wouldn't even know that he was in the business. And it's very funny because while there was plenty of good quality information, in my eyes, like some of the best, like you wouldn't even know. It's like, living next door to Jimi Hendrix, but you're like, oh, that's like, you just know him as James. And you're like, yeah. We mow each other's lawns when we're out of town. Like you don't know who's any good.
Right.
So it's just really, so even there's so many gems that are outside of social media and stuff like that. I think that when you don't need them that much when you're younger, but if you're a young professional, there's so much good information out there that you have to kind of work for, and it's worth it,
Yeah.
It's.
So here's another thought I've been thinking about recently, because I was actually talking to one of my football players. And I was telling him about like some of my struggles with powerlifters and how it's like, man, if you tell a powerlifter to back off, they act like you just reached in and pulled their heart out. And he's like, if you tell me I need a break, I'm like, well, how long do you want me to stay away? And I got to thinking about that, and I'm like, you know what? Like, I think powerlifting's interesting because like an athlete goes, I'm trying to get stronger to play football.
Yeah.
So for him, the gym is a tool.
Yeah.
For a power lifter, their tool is their event.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's like, the athletes, like I always tell, my main goal as a coach is to raise their GPP, squats, bench, all that other stuff we do in the weight room. That's just GPP for an athlete. That's all that is. Where the hard thing with powerlifting, like you said, like you're essentially doing your sport. It's like playing like a tough football game Monday, Wednesday, Friday. When it needs to be seen almost as general training up into a certain point. But the hard thing is like it becomes when you ask someone like you need to back off, you need to we need to lower this weight. Like it's like not just it's a personal attack. Like you just made told her what a horror their mother was or something. It's like, dude, it's not a big deal. Like everyone has to do this. I'm like, so I still obviously battle that with kids. Listen, we're gonna take some weight off, whatever you're just not working. And the funny thing is once you trust that, you end up coming back a million times stronger. Usually, if you back up, especially if you back up enough. Some people are like, well, I'll back up 10 pounds. I'm like, dude, that's like 0.5% of your lift. That's not going to make or break you. So we've noticed the farther we it's like doing a running 40. If you only have 2 steps, it's not going to make a difference. But if you have 10, 15 yards to build up, your 40 times is going to be amazing. So it's like pulling back a slingshot. The farther you go back, the more powerful it's going to be. So, and I don't mean you go back to the empty barbell or whatever. Use some common sense, people. So,
I mean, like I love watching people and their Instagram and it's like, it's a deload this week. I'm like, that's a fucking deload. Are you fucking kidding me?
Just doing speed work, Chad.
Yeah.
They got it hitching up their deadlift.
And I've had people where I go, the reason you had a shit meet is because you're overtrained, man. Like you're beat up. No, I'm not. I can do it. I can train harder. And I'm like, dude, I'm not trying to insult you, man. I'm just telling you, like, if your body doesn't heal, you're not going to get stronger.
One of the things that we did at London, I started coaching on the field at London. Okay. And during the 2016 season. So was one of the worst years of football in the history of the world. And so
that's pretty bad.
3 or 4 weeks into the season, I told the head coach, I'm like, just let me do all the strength work. I'll do all of it. So I started training the JV freshman team, and that's how I started. But anyway, after that season, we started our off season, and the head coach came to me and said, hey, what do you think? That's like, all right. I mean, how honest do you want me to be, bud? And I was like, just lay it on me. And so I went point by point, all the things that I think needed to change. And he agreed with me. And one of the things is our recovery stunk, because our answer as a coach, if they have a bad game, is to do more. It's because they weren't ready. When the reality is, for the most part, it's because they did too much. And so I always like to use the example. If you and I had a bench meet on Friday, right? Friday Night Lights, would we bench hard Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
Yeah, no.
And expect Friday to be any good. And so we made wholesale changes, not just we'll do a little bit here. We're like, fuck, we're changing this. Like we got rid of 2-a-days. Why? Our kids are already in great shape. I'd rather do a walkthrough than have them go hitting pads, in August. So we changed, we don't do any conditioning during the season. We don't do, 100s or 50s or gassers or anything like that, because we are a small school, and the kids run around all practice. So they're already, and I remember that first year after the off season, right? So the 2017 season, that first game, I'm warming the kids up on the field, and because the music's loud, I'm going, here we go, and I almost puked like 7 times, because in my head, I was like, if this blows up in our faces, like, because I was getting the kids on board with how we trained. We changed everything. I'm like, man, I'm going to look like the biggest idiot. No one's going to trust me. And like that first quarter was just a fucking bloodbath for the other team. I mean, and it was to the point where like, all right, like I do know something, the changes we made were good. And we ended up making the playoffs.
So
And
let me ask you this really quick. You said you were about to throw up. Like, when you did this program, was there still part of you that went, God, is this going to be enough?
it was never, no, no, because I knew what training should look like.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I think the big issue I had was because we run year round. Okay. We don't do specific conditioning right before 2-a-day or, summer practice. Right.
Right.
So because we run year round, we never have to have like a conditioning phase.
Right. Which completely makes sense.
Yeah. And we don't have to run a lot on the days that we run. And, let's say it's January 15th and there's 10 feet of snow on the ground. We don't need to run today. That's fine. We'll give the kids can have a day off, or maybe the kids are feeling a little tired that day. You can tell. We're not going to condition today, but 99% of the time we're on the field running.
Right.
And that was one of the things because growing up, it was just wind sprints, gassers and all that other stuff. And then that first game, and you have to understand too, all our kids play both ways. So that's extra tiring. And then obviously it's, August heat and September heat. So part of me was more nervous about that. And the other thing is, I don't care. We talked about this a little bit before, I think. Your kids might all get stronger, might all get faster, might be in better shape, everything just awesome. And they're not going to win.
Yes.
That's the way sports is. And that was my big worry, that the kids had invested all this time into all the training and stuff like that. And they trusted me, that was a big thing too, huge. And I was like, well, what if they don't get any better? At least good enough to beat the teams.
Right.
I think that year we had kid rush for 2,000 yards. Next year, he rushed for close to 3,000. Like, it was crazy, the difference. We had one year, a kid had like 2,800 yards rushing. And that same year, we had a kid who had 1,400 yards rushing. It was crazy. And that's, to me, I was like, oh my God, this is, it's all coming together. But yeah, I was nervous, so.
I know, like throughout my career, because I kept training, basically ended up training less heavy sessions, or for me, what I call like, that's a real training session.
Yeah.
And doing more GPP. And I've still never completely conquered that.
Yeah, it's a mental hurdle.
Do more. Although now what I try to do is I try to go, I do need to do more, but I don't need to do more in the gym. I need to do more sleep. I need to do more nutrition. I need to do more GPP. I need to do more, like you said, consistent. Less training, but more consistent, maybe, or less intensity, but more consistent.
Well, I tell the kids we just need to stack wins. Mm-hmm. Even if it's a win, it can be as simple as having a great attitude today, doing what I ask you to do, do it with the correct way. But you're not always going to lift the most weight or whatever like that. Now, if you do feel good that day, right?
Yeah.
Let's go. Mm-hmm. But at the bare minimum, what's expected of you. But we're a big believer in stacking wins, climbing up that ladder. And the problem is, let's say you climb 50 rungs, right? And then you do that one stupid shit session, or you stay up for 2 days straight partying. You don't go down one rung. I mean, you're falling, and then you got to, get back up and get back up. So the big thing is, I want daily wins. When you do daily wins, you don't have to put your hand in the fire all the time.
I try to explain overtraining to people like that. And there's a lot of people say you can't overtrain. I think you can, at least your central nervous system. But I go, you go right up to overtraining. It's literally like falling off a cliff.
Yeah.
Like if you're undertrained, you can just keep going. But once you hit that, you could set yourself back weeks, if not months.
Yeah. Well, I told
by going beyond that.
I would rather you have to understand, our kids train very hard, very consistent. But I said I would much rather have them be a little out of shape.
Mm-hmm.
2-a-days come, then a little over shape,
Yeah.
because we're never going to have time to recover. I mean, the
Yes.
season's long. It's, almost daily training or practices. So it's, if they're a little bit undertrained, they're going to be fine because we know they're physically fit.
Yes.
They might not be game ready. And really, no one's going to be game ready until the third or fourth game of the season, so to
Yeah.
speak. There's nothing you can really do to completely prepare a kid for a full football game playing both ways. It's
Yeah.
very difficult. And if you do, you're going to compromise something in practice or in your general training. So, but anyway, but that's, when when I tell coaches we don't do this, we don't do that, like, how? And it's almost like, that's awesome, man. I'd love to do it, but I can't do it. Like, just like when you were, I can't take a day off. I can't.
It's like so foreign.
And it's the right thing.
Yes.
Like, so, and that's,
I've had so many conversations with even recently, because I'll do like phone consults with lifters and stuff. Like if they can't pay for regular training, I'm like, well, let's just talk.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm like, dude, you have a physical job. You're training heavy 4 or 5 days a week. I go, you're not recovering. And they're like, no, I'm not overtraining. There's no way. And I'm like, oh, can you just try it? They go, well, no. I'm like, have you ever tried it? They're like, no. It won't work if I do less. And I'm like, how do you know? You've never tried it. I go, have you tried doing more? Yeah. What happened? I got fucked up. I go, okay, you've never even tried it and you're telling me it doesn't work. How do you know it doesn't work when you've never tried it?
Yeah. Well, the other thing I think needs to be addressed is, from my point of view, is even though our kids have the junior high pipeline, their general physical preparedness is horrible. And that's because the kids aren't doing as much physically from the ages of, from birth till whatever, 12 or 13. They might play sports, but they're not doing all the other stuff that you and I used to do, especially riding bikes and running around and playing tag. They're just not doing that. And without that base, I don't think you can ever really make up for it. And meaning, if you spent from the time you could walk to, junior high, so to speak, so our training, right? If you spent riding bikes till 7 o'clock at night, playing tag, and, just playing pickup basketball, playing pickup football, all this stuff that everyone used to do, you can't make that up with, for the average person, you're not gonna be able to make that up when you're in junior high or high school. It's very similar to learning a language. It's easy for a kid to learn a language from ages, 0 to, I don't know, 6. I don't know the exact age. And after that, it becomes very difficult.
So you're thinking like almost on a developmental, almost physiological, you're not getting these things that you need because you're sitting around on your ass playing video games. So like trying to make up for that later, that's an interesting idea.
So what ends up happening is, and I've talked to dozens of coaches about this, and just, let's say, running volume alone. And so when I first started at London, I detailed like a kind of a general running plan. That first day, I was like, oh my God, this was supposed to be the easy day. I was like, holy shit. And so I cut back. I mean, the answers were right there in my face, but I couldn't believe how little running we can do.
Yeah.
And so I asked other coaches, like in the last 30 years, like I'm talking older guys, has your running volume have to be decreased for your training? And they said, oh, it's unbelievable. It's not even close. And so, one of the things I used, and I'm sure you've done it, and I'm sure you've heard it, is everyone likes to criticize the generation, for being fat, lazy, whatever. It's the same thing everyone says about the generation before them.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in my house before I started coaching. I remember being critical, and I remember thinking, well, what are you doing about it? Like, sitting on a computer or writing a book is not helping anyone. Not helping. So I was like, well, let's be part of the solution. And the only way you're part of a solution is going out and get it done, at the
Right.
very least, raising your kids, that your own kids. And then I was like, I have the tools to help the community. And that
Right.
was one of the big things I wanted to do, is like, let's put my money where my mouth is. Let's be part of the solution instead of sitting here complaining about this and that and this and that. And it's a real problem. But the only solution is you got to change.
Yes.
And even if we have to change how we train, because we do. I can't train the kids the same way I trained, 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. But you got to adapt that, because if not, your kids are going to be run the fuck down.
Yeah, you're basically you think you're starting with the kid at a certain level, and he's already so far behind that, again, you got to adjust your training to go, okay, he's so undertrained that we got to like start slower.
Now they can make tremendous progress, but I really think there is something to be said about the early years. I really do.
I mean, just think about in terms of like bone density, tendon strength, and then neurologically, I mean, their central nervous system probably isn't developed because it hasn't had the stress or the stimulation to adapt.
Yep.
And there's got to be a point that you might never get back. Like it needed to be developed to a certain point at that time.
So I don't know. It's been it was a real eye opener for me. I mean, obviously now I've been doing it for quite a while and I'm kind of used to it, but it was kind of hard to handle, because I had to change how we trained.
Right.
And I wasn't ready for that. The good thing is you can make awesome progress and it doesn't take a lot.
Yeah.
I need some, I always laugh when you see all these super advanced training things. And I'm like, if you're a coach, you'll never use this ever. I mean, maybe if you train one-on-one with a super advanced lifter, but those guys already kind of know what's going on. 99% of the people who coach will use about 5% of their training knowledge, as far as like, because you're just basically training beginners most of the time. Before you hand them off to the colleges or whatever. And now the problem is you got to be very creative in that beginner world, because this kid can't do this kid can't do this. So now you got to have a lot of tools. But as far as like advanced modalities, you're not going to use. I mean, dude, even if you did, like who needs them in high school?
Yeah. But I think that goes back to what you said earlier about even in your training as in powerlifting, it had to change all the time.
Yes.
Like the better you get, the more complex it gets and the more things matter. In the beginning, it's like, man, there's a number of things we can do to get you better.
Yes. Yep.
But I think one of the problems, again, and I think this comes back to, I don't want to, like you said, I don't necessarily put all the blame on social media, because it's also the people that are looking at social media. But I get a lot. Well, I already did that exercise. Well, I need to do something different. It's like, no, you don't. You just need to keep doing the basics for a while till you get better. Like, what makes you think you need to change exercises every damn time you train?
Well, when I first started, I remember training the kids, reading an article by a rugby coach. And I wish to this day I would have kept it, or at least, because I don't know his name, but I remember him saying, like, I don't change the exercises very often with the it's a professional rugby team. And the interview is like, well, how is that possible? He's like, these are the two best reasons. One, our guys can continue doing those movements during the season, never get sore. All right. Number two, this doesn't really affect me, but he says, when I'm not around, for whatever reason, they're not going to look at their paper and be like, what the hell is this exercise? They're like, I've done this a million times. Yeah. So when we first started that first off season, and that, all the way through the season, we did, I think, 7 movements. That's it.
Right.
I got the kids so they knew how to set it up. You don't think that's a big deal until you got 50 kids setting up dumbbell incline bench. All right. Which part of the incline bench do I put it on? Do I do this? I got to grab the dumbbells. There's a lot of little hidden things when you're coaching big groups. But it was never, so after the basics, just setting stuff up, it was much easier. instead of, hey, like we're going to dumbbell floor press with chains, you know what? It's like, all right, hold on. Like now it's 20 minutes, you know, kids are farting around. So I've added a lot more variety, but I never take out the big stuff, so to speak,
Yeah.
even especially the big assistance work. I always want the kids to, you know, be able to set, I know this sounds dumb, set it up, make sure they know approximately what weights to use in their movements and stuff like that. So that was something that was the not changing movements was something that just blew my mind. I was like, what are you talking about? You got to confuse your muscles. And I'm like, well, at this age, you know how you confuse your muscles? You push hard, you know, and you do it every week, right? You know, 3 times a week
I mean,
for 4
doesn't that go
years.
back to accommodating resistance? If you keep getting stronger, it's a new stimulation to the muscle.
Yeah. So, and then, you know, this is some other stuff. One, we don't, this is still hard to understand for me in my head. But once the kid, as an example, can do 225 for 5 reps, my goal isn't to get him to 230 for 5 reps the next 2 workouts or something. My goal is to master that 225 for 5 reps until it's so goddamn easy, it's ridiculous. And then when we keep on we call it let it simmer. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not always going crazy trying to break records or something like this. We are letting weights simmer for a long time. And then when we make the jump, not only are they always fresh and healthy during their training, right? Now they can run better. Now we're doing, because we do a lot of jumping. They're playing other sports, stuff like that. We let those weights simmer until the bar speed is faster. Their back position's perfect. Is that, you know what I'm saying? Like,
So, but that's it.
Are better.
Yeah,
right?
that's interesting though, because they did progress. They just progressed with the same weight. I mean, if they move it faster, then they're putting more force into the bar. If they're able to now keep their back tight and keep their shoulders down, their technique's better. So those muscles are stronger. So this is it. The way you just said that's actually really interesting to me, because I do get caught into that. Oh, well, you got to do more reps. You got to do more weight.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily true.
No. And what happens is, again, the lift becomes easier. And again, the lift that they're doing, how do I put this? It shouldn't be crazy all the time, right?
Right.
So you have to understand that. So it's not when they did 225 for 5, they're like, 5th rep wasn't, blah, 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 blah. It's good and strong, but you can tell like they probably didn't have another good one left.
Right.
Okay.
So part of the key to that is them focusing on intent and technique and making it cleaner.
Yes. And the other thing is, we are able to train our assistance work. That's where we really build our muscle. That's why I tell the kids, the barbells for power, the dumbbells are for prone, right? So, but now we have all those extra sets of straight leg deadlifts or dumbbell straight leg deadlifts or dumbbell squats or box jumps or lunges or plate squats and glute ham raises. We're letting all that volume build up. So we're now, our upper backs are stronger than ever. And then when we make that jump to the next weight, their body's 1000% prepared to hold that position. I see it with my youngest son. Dude, it blew my mind. We did the same fucking weights on the deadlift because as soon as we raised up to a certain, I don't know what weight it is, let's just say 85 pounds. As soon as we went to 90 pounds, you know, his upper back did a little round. And I'm like, it's not what I want. I'm like, I'm not in any rush. So we did the same weights for like 3 months, just to the point where he's like, and I'm like, don't worry about it, buddy. But the workouts were never stressful. You just got, because I could give him different cues, right? Because once the cue got locked in. So if I'm not mistaken, I think the weight that he did over and over again was 65. Okay. So one day he's at wrestling practice at this other gym. It wasn't the school gym, it was another gym. And in the wrestling room, they had a weight room. And they had a barbell loaded with 115. And he goes over there, perfect back. It's the best reps I've ever seen. And I was so proud. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. He just did 115 for 3 perfect reps, but he's only trained with 65. That is not how it's done, right? And so he got so much stronger just by doing very sub-maximal weights, just getting better at them. And that to me was like a huge eye opener. Now I know he's a young kid, and obviously they're going to make progress pretty quick, but it blew my mind.
No, this totally makes sense to me. You just spun something around in my head, because I've had like clients are like, oh, on their supplemental stuff, they're like, I did the same as I did last time. I go, yeah, but you PR'd on your bench first, so you didn't have as much energy. So doing the same reps and sets, you actually were still stronger. But now you just flipped this around and said, well, listen, if you stick at your main lift, if you stick at that and get the technique better and do it better, now you have a little more energy to put more effort into that supplemental work, which is in the long run is going to actually, this is fascinating.
Well, the other thing is we can train the assistants harder.
Yes.
With less repercussions for sports, for running, for jumping. So the way that we started, that doesn't mean we never trained the bench and trap bar and squat hard or anything like that. But I'm very cognizant of what happens if we do too much on one lift, like the main lift. It does have consequences, not just that day, that workout that follows, the other workout that follows.
And it could be a snowball effect that.
Oh, it's bad, because if you don't accommodate for that fatigue on the next workout, then it's going to be a couple other workouts till they're ready to go.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that I tell coaches. Every time we go into the weight room, I have a plan. I change that plan a lot, because as soon as I walk up there and you can tell the kids are dragging ass, listen, we gotta work around this. We're going to cut this out. We're cutting this. We're going to do these weights instead of, so I'm always changing shit. And during the season, we always trap bar on Monday and we bench press on Wednesday. Okay. We cut out the squat, which was a huge thing. I got that from Buddy Morris, less hamstring fatigue. Made a huge difference. Squats never suffered either. You don't have to squat 6 days a week to get better. Anyway, so I walk into the weight room now. I train the kids during the season, during the day. All right. So I go over to the school, even though I'm not a teacher or an employee, I go over there and we do it during gym class. And that first, I have 3 groups. The first group, they're walking up there, Chad. And I'm like, oh, boy, I'm not even loading 135 on here. So we changed a lot of the stuff. The next week, same thing. Kids are just exhausted. Nope. We don't trap bar that week. 3 weeks in a row. The practices are hard, all this stuff. The 4th week, the kids are like, let's fucking go,
Yeah.
We set so many all-time PRs that workout.
That's just,
but according to everyone on in the world, right? You can't take a week off, but the kids needed a week off. Not the week off. We didn't train the trap bar that week.
Right.
And I also have, so I have the workout planned. I have, if they're a little shitty, a little more shitty, and super shitty. there's this, I have a step system. Like, listen, I can't do this. We're going to do this, whatever. They were at the bottom, not, so that's like nothing, like no trap bar, just, whatever.
Yeah.
They didn't even make it to the 3rd level. They were 4th level stuff. And so but I remember that day we trap barred, I was pretty excited because, we hadn't done it in a while, and the kids love training like that. And all of a sudden I'm watching these kids, and these aren't freshmen. These are kids who are seniors, pulling a 3-rep PR all of a sudden. I'm like, wow. And not just, and I always stop them early, during the season, I stop those kids early.
Yeah.
they were still had tons of more reps in them. And I was like, holy cow. And that just solidified, like, trust your gut, dude. If it doesn't look, and the kids, like women in prison, all their menstrual cycles get together. Generally speaking, when you're coaching a big group of kids, if half the kids are crappy, all the kids will be crappy. Like and if half the kids are really awesome, the other half, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So as a group, you kind of evaluate that, and I'm always changing stuff up. So I always have like a general, well, I have a specific plan, but I also know, like, man, if X, Y, and Z happens, whatever,
you have to adjust.
We got to know a way out of it, because I'm not just, well, it says so on the paper.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you got to do it. It's like, it doesn't work. So I always have, plans for, the day. And then if the day's really good, we can do this, or
take advantage of it.
Yeah, we take advantage of it. So anyway.
So this all reminds me of.
That's what coaching is. Coaching's not personal training. Yes. I got 50 kids. You got to get them all on the same page. They got IQs of a duck. You know what I'm saying? And the maturity, because group maturity is really bad. If it's one-on-one, like, Mr. Wendler, good to see you. You get 50 of those guys together, you're lucky that they wipe their own ass after they take a dump. So.
And that's true, though. It doesn't matter how old they get. That's still true.
Dude, it's mob mentality. So that's if we can get, so I always tell people, coaching, everyone wants to know X's and O's and all this stuff. I'm like, man, coaching is mostly communication.
Yeah.
You have to get all the kids going in the right direction, doing everything perfectly. And that's hard to do. That no science degree is ever going to get you to be able to do that. And that's why, being a personable person, having rapport with the kids, understanding, what the kids respect you, all that other good stuff. So, but anyway, that's what they don't teach you about coaching. Coaching, everyone wants to do super maximal phase or circa max phase and this and that. I'm like, yeah, but do the kids listen when you say something, or they just whatever? So,
well, even that, I think I hate the term personal trainer, although I think that's what a lot of these people are, is personal trainers.
Personal trainer
I want to be a coach.
It has their own hurdles. Personal trains one-on-one. Now you're a psychologist.
Yeah, I do get a lot. It's the same thing when I was bartending.
You have to be a good listener.
Yeah.
That's why that's a hard job too, because I've been in that thing and it gets uncomfortable sometimes.
But like the guy who writes the program and just goes off the program, that's not a coach.
No.
Because I can pretty much say throughout my whole career, you cannot just write a program and have everybody do it to a T.
No.
Something's going to happen along the way.
Dude, you're going to get hit in the face.
Yeah.
That's just the way it goes. And a good coach knows how to swerve,
and
he knows how to listen when he gets hit. And that's something I think, for me personally, I've gotten better at. I've trusted my gut. I've done some stupid shit, and I know inside, like, dude, what are you doing? Like, no, it'll work. And I've gotten better at that. And the other good thing, Chad, is we train so consistently that if my gut even has a little tingling, I'm like, we don't need to do it.
Right.
Because we've trained it's just day after day. And you can really, I hate to say this, you can train pretty lazy sometimes if you train like that. A young kid.
That makes sense though to me.
Now, I would never say that. And I don't want the kids to do that. But you might be surprised what happens if you're just consistent.
Yeah. See, that's a hard concept for me though, because I was thinking about this in terms of just general strength training. I like beating the crap out of myself.
Yes.
I like going into the gym and going just berserko on a weight. So I know now that when I do that, like, dude, you just screwed yourself. Like, you can't train hard for a while now. And are you okay doing? So to me, there's like this balance. I can train consistent, but the intensity is not going to be as high. But if I have high intensity, then I'm going to need to really drop that intensity down for a certain period of time.
that is one of the reasons why I changed personally my training, because I missed sharpening my teeth.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't sharpen my teeth like I used to. So I had to change the way I trained. And now I can be as dumb as I want to be and I'll be fine. And
Right.
that is a great feeling.
So what did you change to make that happen?
I do nothing but body weight and weight vest training now. I push, I use the sled, stairs.
So you're able to kind of push yourself
Very hard.
but there's only so much. I mean, even though you're pushing yourself hard, you're still going to be able to recover.
It's generally speaking, the only soreness I have is, I mean, unless, I got my shoulder isn't very good, but I make amends for that stuff. I make changes and stuff like that. But generally speaking, I can push this, the push-ups, the body weight squats, vest squats, the pull-ups, the prowler and stuff. You can train very hard and not get hurt.
Right.
I think I'd have to check the exact dates, but I think I did 7.5 months where I did a Murph every single day. And what's awesome about that is, initially you get the soreness, first couple days, first couple weeks, I don't know, whatever. Your hands are just ripped to shit, all this, whatever. And then your body starts kind of getting tired, like really, and then it just is fine. And it became that was super easy. It was like a really cool thing. So then it just became a lesson in how consistent and disciplined can I be? Because it wasn't hard to do, but when you're tired, you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And that's something I was missing. So it wasn't just I could train hard. It's that I had to have the discipline and build that discipline back up to do stuff when my body was tired. And does that make sense? And like you didn't want, because that was something that I missed from playing sports. And you're not going to really get that in powerlifting because you're not going to be exhausted like you are after 300 body weight squats. Or pushing the prowler. We'd call it the prowler marathon. We have a half-mile loop that I did that every day for 30 days. I pushed the prowler for a half mile. And
that seems exhausting.
Oh, it's horrible. That first time, man, I brought my phone with me to call my wife. I'm like, listen, I don't know how this is.
Pick me up.
One time, my buddy Matt was here, and it was a Saturday.
Would that be Matt Rhodes?
Yeah. So Rhodes and I are about to go watch college football. Love college football. We sit on the couch all day. So I said, listen, Matt, we're going to have Popeyes today, and we're going to sit on our ass. So let's earn this today. So we put 3 45-pound plates on each side of the prowler, and we did a mile. So
holy shit.
2 of us. So each of us did a half mile.
Yeah.
3 plates on each side, dude, was fucking hard to move. But I'm like, it was like 9 a.m. I'm like, we got 3 hours to finish this. That whole day after we finished, I don't think we saw the first crop of games, just completely out of it. The 3 o'clock games, in and out. And it was just, but that was something you're not going to really find with maxing out, so to speak. And that's what from my football background, that's what I missed. I missed giving so much that you almost like you pass out in a way, and not, there's a different world. Like conditioning is a different strength than strength.
Yes.
So
I found though, even like, cause basically when I had to stop competing at the highest level, my mental health was bad.
Okay.
And so I needed to stop killing my central nervous system. And so I backed off and trained really light for a long time. And I'm like, I want to start getting some strength back, but I can't be stupid about this. And I actually got one of I think it was first or second version of 531. And one of the things I actually enjoyed about 531 was that it didn't kill my central nervous system, but I still had that little AMREP challenge.
Yep.
And, I think I cut back. I think I was doing 3 sessions a week, maybe two or 3. Yep. And it kind of still gave me that enjoyment of, hey, I'm going to fucking AMRAP more than I did last time. So I had that push, but it didn't kill me like trying to do all these crazy max effort lifts was.
Yep.
And I actually used it. I used it on one of the BMX. I was training a BMX racer, and I'm like, I'm going to try 531, and he did awesome on that.
What was I'm always curious. Was his shoulders and back, were they always injury and wrists? Or I mean shoulders and wrist injury prone?
He had shoulders and wrists. His actually knees and his lower body were pretty good.
Because biking's easy on the body. That's why I do it. I'm the king of the airdyne, you know. But I always see when those guys are landing, your feet can take it, your back can take it up to a certain point because it's not really loading.
Well, he was actually a BMX racer, not a.
Okay. Yeah, but still,
it was easier, but still, it's a lot on the wrists, and a lot of them because he was younger and they have weak wrist anyway. So when they come down,
They have what now?
Weak wrists anyway.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And so they don't keep them tight. Okay. And so over the time that was better. I'm huge on BMX bikes, man. I took a group out last night, like one of my powerlifting groups. I'm like, all right, tomorrow for GPP, we're going on a fucking bike ride. And everybody loves it. And I like it too, because a straight BMX, it's a single speed. So you're not shifting all your damn gears. And I even posted a video on my Instagram. I have one of my clients, she's 74. And she's like, I've never stood up riding a bike before.
She never went butts up?
No. And so she goes, can I ride one of your bikes? And I go, hell yeah, you can. And dude, 74, hops on it, cruises down the street, turns, and I'm like, I love your generation. I go, your generation's still the baddest motherfuckers out there.
I was telling my youngest son about when I was growing up, like BMX bikes. Like I remember the red lines.
Yes.
Remember Haro?
Mm-hmm.
I had a Diamondback that I loved.
I'm trying to find I want to rebuild an old original Diamondback.
Yeah. But I remember the mag wheels.
Mm-hmm.
Remember those? I don't know if
Skyway.
Yeah, and I remember
you can buy. They still make them to this day.
Right?
Yep.
There's always something like if you saw a dude with mag wheels, holy shit, dude.
Yeah, that was like the new high tech.
I don't know, man. Like make way! Here comes the mag wheel, dude.
That's what I said. When I was a kid, I got a Huffy because my parents didn't have much money.
Yeah.
But I had cousins that had like Mongooses and GT.
There's another one. GT.
And I'm like, fuck, I want one of those. And I'm like, you know what? Now I rebuilt a bike the exact same colors as my Huffy.
Yeah.
Only it has the best of the best. And I go, this is making up for my childhood Huffy right here.
Oh man. And it's just I just remember like we'd always build ramps.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't believe that I could have kids because the amount of times I landed with my perineum just smashed on something. I just remember like, oh my God. But
the best part is like everyone I make go ride with me. Like I'm building, because I build custom bikes too. I'm working on one for one of my clients right now. She's like, I want one of my own. Yeah. And so I put it all together to design, and she's like, yep, let's do it. And they all smile. They come back smiling.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, they get to feel like a kid again. They're getting great training. It's great for their legs, their backs, their arms, their shoulders. Yep. Like this is fucking perfect.
Yep. And it's easy on your body.
Yeah. And it's easy. There's no huge hard stress. So there is one thing I want to talk about, because I think we got about 15 minutes.
Okay. Hey, I appreciate you having me on, buddy.
Dude, I love having you on. I've been wanting to have you on here for a long time. It's just,
I'm just saying that now.
Getting the damn schedules and shit. I remember a conversation, and I'm a creative person, so I can never remember how much of my conversations I made up or not. She
said she loved me.
I swear she did. We were talking after you got your first 1,000. Mm-hmm. And this was like one of those, there's like 6 conversations I remember with people that like, I really went, okay, I got to think about this. Like, I got to let this sink in. And after your first 1,000, we were talking, and you're like, yeah, it was after you had your first son, I think. Mm-hmm. And you were like, man, this is like, not that you didn't train hard, but you were like, this is the first time where I really didn't care about the plan. You're like, there were days where I was supposed to go do it, and I'm like, yeah, I want to go see my son. Screw that. and you were like, the least attention I put into it and the best result I ever had?
What happened for that meet and the meet prior was, like everyone else, you had your plan. I'm doing 405 and a blue and a green, all this stuff. And if I didn't, because it was West Side, you squatted with the group. You couldn't always do that.
Right.
People need to understand that. It's whatever Chuck wanted to do was what was happening. So it was, anyway, so it would fuck with my brain. That I wasn't able to go what the plan needed to do a little bit. Does that make sense? And so those final 2 meets or something, what I did was said, listen, I know what the weight is supposed to feel like. I know what 75 to 80% 80% should feel like, right? I just would work up to whatever thing was on the bar, chains, bands, any combination thereof. I would work up. And as soon as it felt like I needed to be, I would do my sets there. Okay. So there was no rhyme or reason to how I got that 1,000, but I went back. This is really cool. And I added up, and I went back and looked at my train log, and all the Friday squat days, I added up the weight that was at the bottom of the squat, at the bottom of the box. Does that make sense? So if it was
after the weight was deloaded,
and it was an average of 77%. That is perfect for what we were doing at Westside.
Yeah.
I remember thinking I don't know if I had a day over 85%, very rarely, unless we worked up or something like that. The bottom line was I never stressed about that stuff anymore because I'm like, I realized it didn't matter. Because and the one thing that was really weird, it's like, well, guys squatted 1,000 without chains and band. I don't have to have that. It became crutches. And once I removed the crutch of thinking I need to do something and just understood what it's supposed to be, it's just like when I train the kids, people ask me what percentage of the training max? I'm like, I don't know. I just watch the kids do stuff. And I'm like, that's it. That's what your 3 weeks should look like. That's what that should look like. You know what? You look good today. We're going to add 10 pounds because I know it's supposed to look like this, and I know you can do does that make sense?
Yeah. To me, it makes complete sense.
Yeah. So I'm going around the room, take off 10 pounds. You got to go. No, you're going to stay there. That's perfect. That's exactly what I want. Instead, now we're going to cut your reps down to half because I think the bar speed is not where it needs to be. And it became a massive, that was the second big epiphany in coaching that I ever had. The first one was understanding principles drive everything. So I don't care if we had kids who can't squat with the barbell. 10 years ago, I would have lost my mind. Oh, what are we going to do? And now I'm like, not a big deal because they can trap bar perfectly. It doesn't matter. This is GPP, Chad. It doesn't matter. And magically, you know what? If let's just say as an example, he could trap bar 700 pounds. Not bad. It's not bad. He's probably strong enough to play high school football, right? And so I started thinking, I remember when people used to always say, trap bar is not the deadlift, I'm like, dude, if any motherfucker deadlifts trap bars 900 pounds, no one's going to be like, well, I don't know. Chad, see, not that good. It's like, dude, he stood up and with, whatever.
Yeah.
And once I started understanding first principles that kind of drive the idea, and then understanding what things are supposed to look like. If it doesn't, it says 225 on here, but then it's not 225. Today it isn't.
Yeah.
So let's drop the weight. So as an experiment, we do some different stuff with the training, especially on the bench press. And I'm looking around the room. You got to have a good eye for everything. I'm going up 5 pounds, down, whatever.
Yeah.
Did this for 3 months. So, and then I told the kids, well, you guys have been doing this for 3 months. I'll let you guys choose the weights. Total fucking catastrophe. Total fucking catastrophe. I mean, you couldn't. And I just remember thinking, I just wanted one thing. You to just learn a little bit, And it was like, that's when you're like, well, that was fine. Like I knew inside, probably not gonna work. But yeah,
No,
that
like
was
that. See, that totally makes sense to me because you are following the principles.
yes.
But the principle is, I mean, one of the other principles is, and this is one of the problems I have with like a lot of the linear periodization programs and stuff.
Well,
Just because
everything's
you did this
linear.
weight in a meet doesn't mean you can do it every day.
Dude,
And if you think you can, then max every day and prove to me that you can do that every single day.
well, everything is linear, Chad. It's just not linear every day.
Yes, I'm talking like a linear periodization where we need to go 85, now you're doing 87%, now you're doing this, now you're doing that. Like you're going to have good days and bad days.
So that's why when I say start light and progress slow, if you do that properly, you're always going to have at least an okay day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at least an okay day, unless something's massive comes up. But you're assured to have the stack a win. It may not be the best. You might have to punch the dude in the nuts, winner, instead of instead of using.
It's interesting too because I've been looking into and playing with velocity, and actually having a velocity meter.
Yes,
and in some ways, you're doing that just with your eye.
Well, the issue that I have with that is that is something I couldn't use that on our kids. Our kids, first of all, there's a lot of slow twitch kids.
Mm-hmm.
It just does, and the other thing is they don't have the inter and intramuscular coordination to fire like that.
Yeah.
Some of their best reps are a little more calm. The only thing that I think it has to be done with an advanced lifter.
Yes.
Who understands the goal is not to beat that. The goal is to do it correct and end up like that.
Well, it's funny because I wanted to do a post. I have one of my IFL football players and a power lifter and another young kid in a group together. And it turns out that the meet he's doing correlates with when my football player has to go back to camp. Okay. So I got them pretty much kind of training together, really similar style. And the other day on dynamic squats, they get in these competitions together.
Yep.
And so like, all right, Chad wants us to hit 0.7. Whoever can get the most 0.7s wins. Yes. And then so they're at the same amount of 0.7. So I'm like tiebreakers, whoever gets the fastest. But they understand that the speed comes through technique. The speed doesn't come through trying to go faster. If you have good technique, it's going to be more efficient. You're going to fire better. You're going to be faster. So it was actually really cool to watch them do that. And their technique kept getting cleaner and cleaner and cleaner and cleaner as it went on. But how many people could I really do that with? That wouldn't completely fuck it up.
We screwed around with that one time. And I remember the guy I was training with said, like, listen, dude, don't do this. Don't, because I was like, just keep your head a little down and relax. I didn't even try. And it reminds me of Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee. He says, oh my God, what is it? When do you punch? Or something. I think that's it. When do you punch? No, when do you hit? I do not hit. It hits all by itself. And like the greatest technique, to have no technique. And when do you hit? I do not hit. It hits all by itself. Yeah. And when I just let it go. Now, this is super advanced shit. Like, I'm not telling a kid. Imagine telling a kid, just relax. But it became where like you kind of like zoned out and just let the training take over, so to speak. Let all those glute ham raises take over.
Well, I think that's where I wish power lifters would start looking at themselves more as athletes. Because this is like when the baseballs I hit the furthest were the ones that I didn't even feel.
Yeah. You try
the golf balls I hit the best. I didn't feel. Like even in tennis, it's like, holy shit, that rocketed. I didn't even feel it.
Yeah. And then it's like, you know what? Next time I'm just going to try harder, be even better.
Oh yeah. I can tell you stories of when I was throwing the shot put and how many times I screwed myself up because I let that aggression, and I'm like, oh, I just got to push. That's it. Now I got it. Now I just got to try harder.
Like so-and-so screamed when he threw it. I got to scream a little louder.
Yeah.
Yep. My best ever discus throw in high school was like 165.
Which is not, that's a good high school throw.
That's not, I was like 10th in the state that year. We had a kid in my conference who threw over 200. So
Yeah,
you
that's
could
pretty
conference
crazy.
meet, throw 170 and not even win. That kid still, I think he threw like 67 in the shot too. And,
that's a really good high school shot too.
That it just like, I remember like we go to like the conference meet, we had 2 kids over 60 in the shot. You know, it's like, you throw 59, like,
yeah, loser.
So, but I remember when I tossed it, I remember being like, it felt easy.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like I gave effort. And it was like, you know, there's nothing better than throwing this because it takes time for it, you know.
Yeah.
165. You start what the hell? And of course, the next throw probably like 142.
Yeah, you went. Wow, oh, I can now just gotta get hard. Just got to throw harder.
Imagine if I tried on that one, how far it would go.
It's amazing. It's so amazing to me how our minds work.
Well, what's funny is I wrote about this in an article I did for T Nation about learning how to lift. The discus was the best thing I ever did was to learn how to lift was the discus, because you just had to be methodical. You can't rush anything. Everything, like one little thing goes out of place, right? Like your thumb's a little weird.
Yeah.
You're fine. So everything was methodical. Slow down, just relax, slow down. And if you do that as an explosive athlete, you end up usually going faster, like we said.
Yes.
Because you're not rushing through all the steps. And that made a huge difference with my training. You squat, it's okay. Let's open up those knees. Oh, here we go now. You know, it's not, everyone's gonna die. You'll see.
Yeah.
And
I will say, I do go into that everyone's gonna die mode.
No.
But then right before when I get to the bar, I pull back. Like that's what I think people watch me, and sometimes because I think, you know, you were talking about what are we doing to change. I look back at some of my lifts and go, I probably fucked up a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because they saw me lift and they thought I gotta go crazy like Chad, but they never took the time to know that as soon as Chad got under the bar, he completely pulled back.
Well, you get under the bar, you settle, and then it eases off, and you push that weight up, and it's just, that's it.
So now I try to explain to people, I go, listen, I'm trying to get fight or flight and get my system jacked up.
Yep.
Then I want to pull it back and do what I need to do.
And I think, but it's crazy because, you know, in the shot put, like, you know, you can't be tense.
No.
Right. You got to,
I
assume you, did you spin or did you glide?
Both.
Both. Okay. But either, you know, the spin was especially shot put spin because it's a small.
Yeah, it's a 7-foot circle, and some of them guys are fucking 6'9".
No, I always wonder if like they kind of have to tippy toe when they spin. Like, dude, you're 6'5", 315. Good luck. Dude, their normal stride is that, you know, some of the, especially like some of the really big, and like they can accidentally follow themselves out when they walk right in. Holy!
Overstep the ring.
Trip over the toe board. Anyway, but it's weird because, you know, growing when I started getting stronger and started doing a lot of this stuff, I remember thinking I always wanted to be like the advanced stuff was so important to me. Now, like the truth is, I never use any of that stuff. Even if I was coaching, you know, I always tell people when someone asks me, they'll ask me some kind of advanced training, and I'll say, well, this is kind of where it needs to be. Like, and they're like, well, what do you do after? I'm like, dude, you're advanced. You should know. Like, if I have to answer these questions, you're not advanced. And it's like a weird, like when I was in Boston one time doing a seminar, someone asked me like, when is it right to do chains and bands? Right. And like, as if like, how much do I need to squat or do I need to lift for X amount of years? And I said, you know what, when you stop asking that question.
Yeah.
when you know.
Well, it's kind of like what you said about Bruce Lee. There's this point where you're learning everything and you're doing everything, and you hit this advanced level, and it's almost like, yeah, just do it. And even I was talking to AJ Roberts, and he goes, yeah, said he remembers Louis at some point. Like, he goes, you get to a point where it's like, you don't even know how you know now. You just know.
Yeah.
And you're comfortable, and you know, like, I know.
Yeah.
So just do it. Like, because I know, because I've done it, because I've been there, because I'm this advanced. Just shut up and do it.
Well, that was always one of the funny things is when Louis would talk about some of the old Russians, they used to, pull the barbell in the water, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it was like, and he used that as like, listen, they're always changing movements. I'm like, the only reason he could do that is because he knew how it was supposed to feel.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's like when I see Olympic lifters talking about the snatch pull and you watch them do it, it's a little weird. Like each guy will do it a little differently, for example.
Yeah.
Because he knows how to do that movement to improve his snatch. He's not doing the snatch pull. He's improving his snatch. You know what I'm saying? So it's not about where he pulls it. It's like, well, I know, listen, I gotta have like a weird back angle. It's like, that's not the right back angle. For me, that's how I need it to be. So they do movements. They do movements that help, and not just to do the movement. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, again, it goes back to he's training for snatch.
Like, yeah, when I started doing board presses, it was, how it is. And then I was like, this isn't helping. I'm getting a better board press. And then I changed how I did everything, and all my weights went down. But I'm like, I don't really care. I know exactly how I should do them now. And boy, was that a humble moment. Because man,
I had this great conversation.
You remember board? Like,
oh yeah. Well, I had this great conversation with Steve Goggins one time. We were talking about people that can't lock out their deadlift. And he's like, dude, they're starting all wrong. Like they're pulling off the floor wrong. But then what they're going to do is they're going to go, oh, I need a stronger lockout. So they're going to go do pin pulls. But they're going to do them in the perfect position. So then they go back to their deadlift, and their deadlift still sucks, and it's the same place it was, and they can't figure out why.
That's why.
Like if you're going to pull like shit and you can't lock out, well, then practice your lockouts in the same shitty position you were pulling it.
Yep. But I always call the rack pull was the exercise you did on Mondays when you didn't want to do anything. Rack pulls, baby. Do you know what I'm saying?
I'm going to get to do a whole lot of weight, and it's a whole lot easier.
And you don't have to bend over and do it like use the jack or anything. Just slide the plate. We're going to have to do pin 50. Dude, that's overhead.
Conjugate. It's different. That's awesome. Jim, it was awesome having you on again. You're fucking welcome anytime you want. I think we could probably talk for hours. About all kinds of stuff, but I appreciate you being on.
I hope your audience learned something.
I hope so. I feel like there's a certain, let's see, how do I say this? There's certain people that I really enjoy talking to and spending time with, because it's almost like I go, finally, somebody who I can sit down and talk with, and there's like an understanding. And it's not just, this is what everyone else always did. Like, it's like, no, I don't care what everyone else always did. This is what's work. And the people that you guys are working with continue to get better. Like, I love hearing stories about the football players and the kids you're training, because we don't get to sit down and talk much, but when we do, you've always done something a little bit different, a little bit better. And like, your kids are always progressing. So it's like everything you're saying, it works, and you're proving it.
One of the things I tell our kids, I mean, when I say tell our kids, I'm saying at least twice a week. I always say every team squats, benches, deadlifts, track, whatever. Big thing that separates us is how we do things.
Yep.
Bar speed is dead on. Your reps, if it says 220, you don't do 225. Like, everything matters. So it's always about how you do stuff. And I know this is kind of off topic, but at the very least, stop looking for perfect programs and do what you're doing right now and just do it better.
Yes, I agree.
Do the reps better, even if that means taking off weight. Because magically, Chad, I love this stuff. I had this epiphany like a year ago. Said it seems to me that every video I get on squat technique or whatever, it's a loading issue, because you didn't look like this at 135. And it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like it seems most of this can be solved with proper loading. And they say, well, I can pick it up, but you can't pick it up correctly. So let's spend some time doing things correctly.
I think that's completely true.
You know, so I always laugh at that stuff. It's, you know, when you see someone squat when weight's too heavy, they're like searching for parallel, you know.
Yeah.
And their knee comes in. They're like, what do you think? Is it my adductors? I'm like, no, we're going to slide some of that off.
Yeah. So you can get stronger in the right position.
And again, that's why, I know we already talked about this, but we let it simmer. Let's let it simmer. I want to see you perfect. And we've had a kid who simmered his deadlift weights at around 225 to 245. And it just wasn't where I wanted it to be, you know. He pulled 315 for 12 reps after like 4 months of this, 5 months of simmering at 225.
So he obviously was getting stronger the whole time, but he was actually doing it with the right technique.
Yes. And like I said before, now he's able to train the next day, because, you know, I know we got to get going, but every once in a while, one of the juniors or seniors will come up to me like, hey, coach, man, can we do something a little heavy? I want to just, give it a rip, bro. This happened maybe a half dozen times so far. Like, do whatever you want, man. You know, just make sure you're whatever. Next time I see him, I'll never do that again. Oh my God. I'm exhausted. My back is killing me. Like my hands hurt, you know, whatever. I'm like, well, lesson learned. Never have to say anything to this kid again. You know,
that's an athlete mentality, though, because a powerlifter mentality, you'd be like, oh, yeah, it was a good session. Yeah. I feel like crap for 2 weeks.
It was perfect because I could watch God, powerlifters today, they got Netflix. Like,
no.
You know, I just stared at a blank TV. I didn't have cable for until I literally got into this house. That is oppression. All right. Speaking of which, I got to get going. I got to go.
All right, man. I'm going to hit my little outro here, man. Thank you for being on.
Thank you guys for watching, listening.
Thanks for listening to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast. For more information, please visit couragebarbell.com. Until next time.